So let's start out with, there are really only a handful of issues in all of estate and elder law. Issue number one, who are you? Tell me about your family. Do we have disabled children? Do we have people who have gambling problems, drug problems, you name it, we see it. And the bottom line is, you got to be upfront with the lawyer. If you're not, you're going to get not very good planning. So that's where you start. Second thing that you do, you want to do it on a pre-crisis basis. I have a case right now where I lost the ability to protect all the assets for Dad because Mom didn't have a power of attorney. And I could have protected everything. But I'm in trouble because I don't have a needed document. So get it done before the problem occurs. And I was sitting with a client the other day, it's not just you. They have kids in their 20s. They need powers of attorney and healthcare directives. So, third thing, your money is either going to be taken by tax issues, and when we talk about tax, we're talking about income tax, estate tax, state of Maryland estate tax, federal estate inheritance tax, and a lot of tax issues with retirement plans. And you will find that if you delay taking the money and you have this big chunk of money and all of a sudden somebody goes into a care facility, you got to cash it in and you're going to get clobbered with taxes. The other is, if you don't lose it to taxes, guess where you lose it? You go to a long-term care facility. Assisted living routinely is $4,500 per month. Nursing home, $8,000 to $10,000 a month. The highest cost of nursing home that I've seen in a long time, somebody is on dialysis and a ventilator. Guess what it was costing per week? Per week. $17,000. How many of you could afford? I don't see any hands going up. You can't afford $17,000? No, but not many can. Maybe Bill Gates or people like that. It does point out the need to think about long-term care insurance. And what I do in estate and elder law planning is I look at the insurance that my clients have, and I'll say, do you need this disability anymore? Do you need this life insurance anymore? As you're doing your retirement type of planning here at LifeBridge, what you should be thinking about is maybe changes are needed. My big fear, and I own long-term care insurance, I'm telling everybody here, and I know how to do the planning to protect assets, I still own it. So where should you start? Well, I think you have to do a survey of your family, and you've got to say, who do I trust? First name. Andrea. Well, let's say you have a child and they have a gambling problem. Do you want to put them in charge of your money? My mother did that. She put my sister in charge with me of the money, but we didn't know it existed. The problem existed. So you got to drill down, you got to be honest, you got to figure out, and sometimes you'll never know. Now, I have a daughter that's a nurse and a stepson that's a doctor. They're nicely suited for healthcare planning, aren't they? So where we start are two different documents. One, an advanced healthcare directive. You need this. If you don't have one that was implemented after 2004, you're going to miss the privacy rule. And you're not going to have the HIPAA language in your document. I was telling this family yesterday, who have two kids, I said, if one of your kids gets sick, has a car accident, and you get a call from California, as a friend of mine did, you're going to have no authority to act because you don't have an advance directive with a waiver called a privacy waiver. And the other thing you want to do in constructing this document, you want to name multiple people, not only in the primary position, but in secondary positions. Many times we're not anxious to name our son-in-law to be in that position. And in my case, my mother-in-law didn't name me. But when I tried to talk to a doctor as she was passing on, he wouldn't talk to me. Now, what I recommend is, and I asked every client, who is going to have any connection with physicians? Andrea, Helen, let's say your kids, but then I ask you, are there any grandkids that may have a connection? Maybe we make them secondary. So you've got to talk about these things. This is strategic planning, because you need people to step in and act when the going gets rough. Believe me, my wife had her knee replaced last summer, and we had an issue at the time of replacement where I wanted my stepson to be able to talk to the doctor. He was on the documents, it was very easily done. He's a doctor. He can communicate in a way that I can't. You could be the smartest person in the world, but there's different language. Once we get that done, the single most important document in all of it, elder care planning, is a power of attorney, and it has nothing to do with a lawyer. It has to do with somebody stepping into Helen's shoes and acting on her behalf. So first of all, you got to trust that person. And in many cases, in my case, it's my wife, but then I have my daughter and my stepdaughter as backup. Now, when I get a little older, I'm going to put my wife or my 2 kids acting jointly or individually. Now, you got to talk to families. There are a lot of blended families. I'm one of them. And you got to talk to them about the relationship with the stepkids, because in my case, I treat them like children. Some don't. And in this particular case, my daughter and my stepdaughter get along, and I trust them to make healthcare decisions for me. I have my stepson who's a doctor as a backup, so he can always get medical information. But structuring these documents are critical. But on a financial power, what do I have? I have my wife and my 2 kids, and my 2 kids are secondary. And they can do anything that I can do. How many of you have a pet? Read your power of attorney. Do you have a pet power, first name?
Janice.
Janice, do you have a pet power in your power of attorney? And people look at me like, what do you mean pet power? That's how specific your power of attorney needs to be. There's a very famous case I teach all my kids in law school. You must know King v. Banker. It requires specificity. If Janice writes a power of attorney and says, Helen, you can do anything in the world that I can do, in literally 1 paragraph, and I've seen those, you can do nothing because she has not delineated what powers you have. Think of a retirement plan. Power to change a beneficiary, access it, change the investment, cash it in, roll it over. Maybe do some different beneficiary changes. And I can go convert it to a Roth IRA. There are all these things that must be in the power of attorney. Maryland in 2010 revised the statute regarding powers of attorney. If you have a power that predates 2010, it should be updated. It will be the most important power in a power of attorney is a gift-giving power. Why? I had a client who came in and he was proud. He had crafted his own power of attorney. Need I say more? This engineer had engineered himself into a position. He said, what do you think of it? Well, first of all, I felt it, and it was 2 pages, and mine ranges from 25 to 35 pages. So I didn't think very much of it by feel. And then I read it, and I said, sir, you put a clause in here that under no circumstances can gifts be made. Now, that has the exact adverse effect that you want it to have. Because if your wife goes into a nursing home, we can't reconfigure your assets and protect them. And that, he looked at me, almost fell under the chair. You need guidance in this area. These are not forms, they're well thought out documents. If you have a pet, you want a pet power. Think about things you do with, I have 2 dogs. Groom them, have surgery, euthanize, board them, give them away. You need it in your document. 2 simple documents, but very, very important. When I say simple, compared to wills. It is important to understand what has changed in the last less than 10 years. Let's go through it. 2004, HIPAA rules, privacy rules. 2006, they implemented a state of Maryland estate tax that ranges between 16 and 6.4%. In 2006, they modified that law. In 2009, my favorite law went into place. You can now do a pet trust. I have done pet trusts, over 20. I recently did my first cat pet trust. I've done 2 birds, a cockatoo and an African gray parrot. Do you know how long an African gray lives? About 60 years. Now the cockatoo can go about 110 to 120. So these people are put away about $750,000 per bird. I've had clients say they'd like to learn to fly. It's not a bad situation, is it? I mean, I've done it for horses, dogs, you name it. But, you know, we all laugh at that, but a lot of people have no close heirs. Who are their kids? Their pets. I call my 2 dogs my kids. Now, I've already arranged that my 2 daughters are getting the pets, and I've left a specific request in my document. They each get $10,000 to take care of it. So I didn't feel I needed a pet trust. But some people do. That's 2009 change. Then the federal law went crazy. It changed in 2010, 2011, 2012, and finally in 2013, we think we have a settled estate tax law. So think of all those changes that have taken place in the law. And I forgot, 2006, the Medicaid rules changed. So people sit here and say, well, how frequently should I see my estate lawyer? Well, why don't you go once every 10 years? Your documents will be fouled up if you don't look at them every 3 to 5 years. Because depending on your need, you've got to sculpt the need to your plan. Let's talk about long-term care. I'm going to talk about taxes last. In order to understand long-term care, you have to understand that I consider it dialing for dollars. How do we find money to help you or your family supplement their care? This particular pamphlet that I hand out on veterans benefits, I missed this benefit for my mother. My father served 4 years in the Pacific Corridor during World War II. Under the law, my mother would have been eligible for a benefit called aid and attendance. That benefit would have been about $1,100 a month. That's a month, 13 plus thousand. If it was for my dad, the veteran gets $1,703, and if it's mom and dad, or if we have 2 vets, we get $1,703 for each. And if it's mom and dad, we can get $2,100. Now think about that. Would that not help you keep your loved one at home? Or help bring in needed help, whether it's in assisted living, pay for assisted living, whatever it is. There are 4 tests to get aid and attendance. First, you had to be a vet in either World War II, Korea, or Vietnam. You did not have to be deployed. You could have served in Germany or the United States. And you're eligible for this benefit. Number 2, you have to be sick. You can't be in great shape. But if you have troubles with your activities of daily living, feeding, toilet, well, you pick your, and many people are, we need a doctor to say this person has some illness and needs aid and attendance. 3, we can have a house, a car, and not more than $80,000. A lot of people have a house, a car, and $480,000. And they say, well, we can't get aid and attendance. And they're wrong. Because under the veterans benefit rules, and there's no look back right now. They're talking about this may come into effect. But right now, we could move mom's $400,000 to you. Now, how could we do that? Under the gift tax law, we can give away up to $5,120,000. Don't all stand in line to do that. But that you can give that away plus $14,000 a year.
Why not?
Yeah, but it's a $5,120,000. You're not going to have any problem moving that $400,000 or some derivation of it. We move it to you, and we have satisfied the financial test. Now, our last test is the income test. This is where most people fail. Dad is sick. He's at home. He has $3,000 a month coming in. So his health care costs are only $1,000 a month. So you say, well, he fails. He has too much income. But I find out that Andrea and Helen are doing a lot of work. They're doing things in the house, they're running errands, they're helping keep Dad in the house. And what we do is enter into an agreement called a care management agreement and gobble up the remaining $2,000. And then you're able to get $1,703 more from the Veterans Administration that help keep Dad at home and pay for this cost of care. This is where everybody fails that last test. I see it all the time. And I said, well, there's a way around it. I had another case where somebody said, well, it's like the cart and horse. I can't afford to put my dad in assisted living. He only has $3,000 a month coming in. It's going to cost us $4,500. Well, what we do is talk to the assisted living facility, say, Andrea and Helen, we're going to put Dad in assisted living. It's going to cost $4,500. We're going to apply for aid and attendance because now we've gobbled up all the income. They're going to get $1,700 a month, and now you can pay for assisted living.